Okay, hello everyone. My name's Tom Mabbett. I'm an operations manager for Naturetrek. I work full-time for Naturetrek, looking after a whole range of different tours across the world. And I've been lucky to lead over 50 tours now, lots across the UK, Europe, yeah, all across the globe really, including to Jamaica. So I set this tour up a couple of years after joining Naturetrek. Yeah, a tour to Jamaica on a quest to see all the endemic species. That's a running theme through these talks, of course, is the amazing endemism. So I'll, for the next 20 minutes, I'll take you there and show you some of the highlights. So Jamaica's the third largest island, so a member of the Greater Antilles. You've seen the geography before on other slides. So it's around 150 miles long and about 50 miles wide. And yeah, so we reach here on there is a direct flight, and so we reach here on a direct flight into Kingston, a BA flight. And as I was saying, it's a very, very high level of endemism. And it was actually thought that Jamaica was never attached to the mainland, so that is a reason for its extremely high level of endemism. There's 30 endemic bird species. That's more than any other of the Caribbean islands. 2 of those are extremely rare or possibly extinct. So we've got a chance of seeing 28 bird species found nowhere else on Earth, 19 endemic subspecies, over 800 endemic plants, incredible range of endemic snails, and over 20 reptiles and amphibians as well. So just so many species that are found nowhere else on Earth. So a very exciting place to visit. So as I said, we can arrive on a nice direct flight into Kingston, and we're really focusing during this tour on the eastern end of the island. And we land into Kingston, travel to the northeastern coast, and stay for the whole week. It's a single centre holiday. Stay for the whole week at Green Castle Eco Retreat, a really nice lodge on the northeast coast. And from there, we're taking it pretty relaxed, the Jamaican way, and spend a lot of time around the lodge, and also dip into the other habitats around the island. So we have 2 days where we travel away to the John Crow Mountains and also the Blue Mountains to pick up some of the more tricky endemic species. So just a little bit more on the geography and where we're heading when we actually get to Jamaica. So we've got Kingston here. This is the Green Castle Lodge, and then a few of these little red dots are just areas we'll visit. The famous Hardware Gap area in the Blue Mountains. We'll do some birding around here. We'll also head over to the foothills of the John Crow Mountains, just here. And then we'll travel along the coast on our days away from the lodge, and just get a feel for local life, stopping in Boston Bay for a bit of a jerk chicken lunch and see what local life is like, and Hope Bay for some birding. And there's a really nice spot not too far along the coast where we hope to see white-billed streamer tails later on in the tour, but I'll come to that. So our lodge is it's a really nice lodge. It's around a 1,600 acre property. And around 20 miles of trails head out from the property through this really lush tropical forest. We've got access to the coast here, some coastal lagoons, a reservoir. This is all within a short walk really of our base. There's lots and lots to see on the doorstep, and that's why I've really chosen to stay here for the entire tour. So there's no moving around at all on this one. It's very relaxed. Just another photo of the lodge. Here, it's quite a small place, so again surrounded by great habitat, lots of flowering trees and shrubs to bring in the birds, and just an awful lot to see without going far. Really nice views from the lawn and the grounds, looking eastwards towards the mountains, the Blue Mountains here in the distance, which we'll visit and I'll come to. And very nice, clean, comfortable, well-appointed rooms, as you'd expect, with lovely views. And this holiday is ideal. It's in our bargain birding range, but it doesn't really fit the bill for that. Lots of those tours are a little bit faster paced. This tour, you will end up seeing all, if not very nearly all of the endemic species of bird, but at a relaxed pace. Those that want to have a chill in the afternoon one day, no problem. You've got a lovely pool there, or you can wander down to the beach. And there's plenty of downtime as well as some fantastic birding. And this is just a shot to show you the lots of different trails that lead from the main lodge. So there's the main lodge here. You can walk a mile down to the coast, And we'll cover these trails on 5 of the days. We won't actually be driving far at all. We might drive a little bit up the coast, but we'll just be walking all these trails down to the waterfall here, down to the reservoir, down to the coast, and walking along the beach. And so there's very little travelling for much of this holiday. On to the wildlife then, and now that's of course why we're here. And this is maybe one of the first endemics you'll see, and you'll tick off in your book is the Jamaican mango. Coming here to hummingbird feeders, and as I said, there's 28 species that we'll try and see through the week, and in fact 27 of the 28 have been seen in the grounds of the lodge itself, although some of those very rarely, so that's why we head away for those 2 days to the mountains. But there's many of the endemics we'll see without moving anywhere. Another shot of Jamaican mango here, visiting one of the many sort of fruiting shrubs and trees in the garden. Wherever there's flowers, if you just sort of wait patiently, hummingbirds will zip in, and you can get some really nice photos of them naturally feeding on flowers. And there's lots around the grounds here, and lots of time to explore the grounds and take photographs. Here's a familiar slide. This is the Jamaican toady, absolute little gem of a bird. Andy spoke about the Puerto Rican toady, and Byron in Cuba. Absolutely exquisite little birds, and they're quite fascinating. They actually excavate their own little nest chamber into sandy banks and muddy banks, and they'll just flit out from a branch and catch insects on the wing. So real star species, and quite easily encountered, really, just outside your room in the forest surrounding the lodge a lot of the time. This is the national bird of Jamaica, the red-billed streamer tail. Fantastic species. I'll come to its cousin, the black-billed streamer tail, a little later. But these two streamer tails, endemic to Jamaica, found nowhere else on the planet, and are very special indeed. And they will often pose for photos in the gardens here with these amazing long tail feathers. Really super species. This little chap isn't an endemic species, but it's the vervain hummingbird. So thought of as the second smallest bird in the world. So Byron brought you the bee hummingbird. This is the vervain hummingbird. So it really is about the size of a bumblebee. You'll be stood next to a plant and something will buzz in, and you think, wow, is that a bee or is that a hummingbird? And it'll just be zipping around, poking its tiny little bill into these flowers. Fantastic little species, and quite commonly encountered. So you won't be seeing a huge number of different species on the tour. As Ed was saying, you get far more numbers of species the closer you are to the mainland. But we'll expect to see maybe 100 and 120 species during the week. And this is Jamaican woodpecker, the only resident woodpecker on the island. And again, we'll expect to see this wonderful bird just walking the trails from the lodge. And another species, the orange quit, a bright blue bird with a orange throat. So lots of big, brightly coloured, fascinating birds that are found nowhere else on the planet. So it's a wonderful place to be birding. Fun doesn't stop at night. We'll head out for night walks into the forest and just around the lodge grounds. We might come across a northern potu that's shown here. I like this photo. It just shows how large their eyes are, almost bulging out the side of their head, and they have very large eyes, and nocturnal, of course, feeding on moths and flying insects. And they will fly out, almost flycatcher like from a perch. They won't sort of sally around like nightjars do. They'll fly out. So they often sit on top of telegraph poles and posts just around the grounds of the lodge. And this is an endemic subspecies that's only found in Jamaica. The guides often know where they're roosting. So although the best chance is obviously at night when they're active, they will use the same roost spot. So often on a snapped branch, and they'll just sit motionless and blend in with their surroundings. And here you can even see, if you look really closely, a couple of little slits in the top of the eyelid. This actually enables them to sense movement when their eyes are still shut. They're still keeping an eye on you even when they're roosting on their day roost. So you can't get too close. So lots and lots of birds. I'll just move away from the birds for a moment. As I was saying, there's plenty of time to be wandering around the grounds. A typical day will head out first thing, early in the morning, when things are most active, of course, and then we'll have, we'll come back and have at least, really nice lunch at the lodge, and then a couple of hours at least of downtime to have a nice swim, explore yourself around the grounds, take some lovely photos, or maybe have a walk down to the beach. This is Jamaican white peacock, lots and lots of butterflies fluttering around the gardens, and as well as all the birds. So lots of time just to explore yourself and just have a really relaxed time full of wildlife. This is Gulf Fritillary. And a short walk, you're down to the reservoir. There's a lovely walk through the forest, down to a different habitat where you might find northern jacana, creeping around the edges of the lake. And out on the water, all the birds you sort of dream of finding in the UK are all there on the reservoir. In front of you, there'll be blue-winged teal that you see here, and there'll also be lesser scaup, ring-necked duck, American widgeon, and lots of very exciting species for us here in the UK. Lots of American coot, very, very common. Sometimes find West Indian whistling duck, and on the sort of really sort of well-vegetated lagoons, masked duck as well. So lots and lots of species to enjoy. So as I said, we'll take 2 full days away from the lodge and head into the mountains, into the John Crow Mountains and the Blue Mountains. Not too far away, but we'll spend a full day out in these areas, trying to see some of the endemic species that are more likely to be found here. So this is the view from the Blue Mountains and the Hardware Gap area. Really excellent birding here. The highest point gets up to just over 2,000 meters, but we won't be getting quite that high up. And the Blue Mountains famous of course for their coffee. So as well as the birding, we'll stop off and sample that and dip into local life as we're traveling around as well. Up here, this is another species we might well find, the wonderful Jamaican lizard cuckoo. Lots of other species can be found: Blue Mountain vireo, Jamaican peewee, arrow-headed warbler. And a very good place for Jamaican blackbird. If you find these really amazing bromeliads, the blackbirds are often flitting around in there, tossing leaves out and finding insects in the bromeliads. So lots and lots of species to find. And fitting with some of the other slides we've seen this evening, this is the greater Antillean bullfinch, which we'll hope to find up here. And one of the real stars is the crested quail dove. I think it was Byron that brought you quail doves in Cuba. And this is the star endemic species in Jamaica. Can be one of the most difficult to find out of the 28, actually. Really likes the dense forest with quite a fairly clear understory. But we have a great success with finding them, and occasionally they'll come out onto the road and break full cover. When I was over there, it was a flutter of wings, and thankfully it landed on a low branch, and we managed to get good views of it. But really, really smart dove. This is a group birding along Ecclesdown Road, another famous sort of birding site in the John Crow Mountains. And it's a slightly lower elevation here. The highest point is around 1,000 meters, and we'll just be in the foothills, just seeing what we can find. And some endemics that can only be really found along this area, such as the black-billed streamer-tail. So the red-billed, very common around the lodge. We head to this area to see this fabulous bird. So we'll see both the streamer-tails during the week. As Andy was saying, most of these islands have their endemic parrots, and Jamaica is no different. This is the black-billed parrot. We also have yellow-billed parrot as well. The sad theme is that they're still these species are declining in numbers as well. But in this area of pristine forest, they're still found in fairly good numbers, thankfully, and we've got a good chance of finding them. This is a ring-tailed pigeon, another species that we'll find up in these slightly higher elevations. So as we're traveling around, we'll be stopping at coastal bays and wetlands and pools, and just experiencing all the different habitats on offer in the area. This is a snowy egret here. We'll stop off at little lagoons. We might find green herons, yellow crowned night herons, piebald grebes, belted kingfisher, so some other sort of American species. Beautiful American kestrel, quite common as we're traveling around on wires and telegraph poles. Stunning male here. And back at the lodge, we'll enjoy the cuisine, of course. One evening we'll have a lovely barbecue down by the poolside. Very, very fun activity and relaxed tour. And we'll also be stopping in on our days away from the lodge as well in local towns to experience the food and local life. And here we are rustling up a jerk chicken barbecue, but as the other said, they cater very well for all diets in Jamaica. Really nice, varied menu, so there's no problems there at all. This was the chestnut-bellied cuckoo, and when I was leading the first tour after over in Jamaica, and we'd actually seen 26 of the 28 species after 3 or 4 days, and there was 2 to go. And this was the penultimate bird, the chestnut-bellied cuckoo, walking just around the grounds of the lodge, and heard this fairly harsh call of this bird, and that was the next species achieved. Really smart cuckoo. Doesn't parasitize other birds like our cuckoo does, but yeah, really special bird. And the final bird was the Jamaican owl. Byron mentioned as often endemic owl species, and this is Jamaica's the fairly nondescript brown owl, but it's a cracking species. We found that on one of the nights. That again, they like to stick to a fairly routine roost spot, so we've got a good chance of finding this special species. Lots of wood warblers, American wood warblers, be passing through at this time of year. This is black and white warbler foraging a bit nuthatch-like on some on mosses and lichens in the trees and shrubs. And we also find American redstart. This is a female American redstart, an absolutely stunning male. And so just step into any area of forest, and these beautiful American wood warblers will be just coming out at you. And a stunning black-throated blue warbler, absolutely cracking birds. Just about a mile walk from the lodge or down to the coast. You can swim, and there is snorkeling that can be done. We don't include it in the tour, but you've got plenty of downtime. So if you did want to walk down to the beach, you can swim here. And this is Jack's Bay Beach, and yeah, perfectly pleasant and safe. And there's some nice birding here as well. Just a nice little walk along the beach. Semi-palmated sandpiper here. And in the mangroves, yellow-crowned night heron, you might see killdeer, least sandpipers, and lots of other species. This is yellow warbler, likes the sort of mangrove habitat that we'll find down here. And again, anoles. There's lots of endemic reptiles. 7 species of anole found here and nowhere else. This is Graham's anole, and they'll extend this little throat patch, this orange throat patch, it's called a dewlap. When there's another one around, they'll flick it out, a bit of a sort of defensive mechanism. Lots of these around the lodge, fascinating little creatures. This is giant anole. I mentioned there's over 500 different species of endemic snail on Jamaica. So as you're walking the forest trails, you might come across this. This isn't one of the endemics. This is Caribbean hermit crab. But it will actually start its life in the sea and then adapt to spend the rest of its life on land, crawling around in the forest, and can live up to 40 years. Quite an amazing species. So not far from the lodge, a very short drive along to Robbins Bay, just a little bit west of where we are, we've got the chance to see this very special bird, white-tailed tropic bird. So there's a small breeding colony, so we'll head very early one morning, and that's often when they come into the cliff face to make a change at the nest, and we can often get very close views of this stunning bird. And occasionally they come right overhead, you can see this amazing long central tail streamers. Fantastic species. And there'll be other birds offshore, magnificent frigate bird here, and a chance to see brown pelicans as well. Excuse me. So that's the tour sort of in a nutshell. As we travel back to Kingston, we'll be sure to stop off in the port there, look for the brown pelican colonies and royal terns here, laughing gulls, sandwich tern up here, lots of other species. And a chance to dip into a local market as well on our way back to the airport for our direct flight home. And so that sort of finishes off the tour. If you think you're going to Jamaica, this is the book I can recommend. Really nice photographic guide, very clear, shows you all the birds to be found in Jamaica, and very clearly lists the species that are endemic, the species and the subspecies. So very good book if you're thinking of heading over there. So this is my final slide, just looking out towards the Blue Mountains from the grounds of the lodge. And yeah, I hope you can visit. It's a fantastic tour, very relaxed. Yeah, you can see all the endemic species and more on a visit there. So if you have any other questions, I'll be delighted to help. But that just about wraps it up from me. And thanks again for listening. I'll pass you back over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Tom. Fantastic talk. And thank you very much, Andy and Maritza as well. And thank you all for your comments that you've been sending in, most of them coming to us directly, but thanking us for the great presentation evening. I've now got 4 more tours added to my list. Well, thank you. That's great to know. Do keep your questions coming in. We'll now go to some of the questions that have been asked during the talks, but if you're thinking of some now, or if you've been saving them up, please do start firing them to us using the Q&A section, and we will start going through them. So first one here, Stephen Fowles says, there's been little mention of mammals this evening. Are there any monkeys on any of the islands visited today?
Sadly not. In the case of Cuba, and as far as I know, in other across the Caribbean, sadly not. They didn't make it.
That goes for all of these islands. Yeah, no endemic mammals on Puerto Rico, Cuba, or in fact any of the Caribbean islands. Join us in South America for your New World Mammal Fix. Yeah,
the only mammal on Jamaica is a introduced Indian mongoose. So that's the mammal list done there. So yeah, it's not a mammal destination.
No. I think for St. Lucia, it's good. It's the bats. So we do obviously visit to see the bat cave, and in the evening times we see bats flying past our rooms. And like Tom just said, we do see some of the introduced mongooses and things like that. But generally, it's the birds, it's the reptiles, and the insects really to enjoy.
Thanks all. Ed, I'll put this question to you, and this is from Nicola James. She says, I can see there is a tour that does Trinidad only without Tobago. Are there any gems that would be missed if only visiting Trinidad? I appreciate it comes down to preference. Thank you.
Yeah, so we do our Trinidad Go Slow tour, which basically is kind of going to these different places I talked about, but at a slightly slower pace. On Tobago, really, you've got the white-tailed saberwing, the hummingbird that I mentioned, the yellow-legged thrush, some of the seabirds like the red-billed tropic bird. But actually, the majority of the wildlife on Trinidad, you will definitely see there. So Tobago offers a sort of lovely kind of beach, the chance to go to an island and see several more species. What I would say about Tobago, though, is that some of the species that sometimes you struggle to see in Trinidad, you can sometimes see a little bit easier in Tobago. I think just they've got slightly sort of smaller forest area. They get perhaps a little bit more used to seeing people. But on the whole, to answer your question, no, you will see. I'm just trying to think now. So when I was there last in Trinidad, I saw 239 bird species. So you will get the majority of those birds and the reptiles and the butterflies, etc., on Trinidad itself.
Thanks, Ed. Tom, a question for you from Simon Young. He says, Jamaica, November or February?
And we've historically been, for the last sort of 7 or 8 years, been running the tour in February. Just this year we put on a departure in November. But yeah, either month that's sort of into the drier time and is a preferable time to visit. So either really. There's no sort of better month for seeing the endemic species.
Thanks, Tom. Andy, is an American visa needed to visit Puerto Rico?
It is, yeah. American visas are called ESTAs. You apply for them online. It's a quick and easy process. I think they cost about $14, and you get them back almost instantaneously. Once you've got one, it's valid for 2 years.
Thank you. A question from Richard Mayat. Do the guides have tripods, digiscopes, etc. for use with the clients, or do we have to squeeze them into our hand luggage? Ed, I'll put that to you.
So with regards our kit, so most of us guides will take a scope and a tripod with us if we've got them available. So usually, for example, with St. Lucia or any of the tours I do, I'd have my scope and tripod, and then when we're at a viewpoint or an open landscape or a wetland, for example, then those people who don't have that kit would be invited to be able to share and have a look at these wildlife a little bit closer. So yes, on the whole, we would be taking a tripod and a telescope, for example, with us.
Great, thank you. And another one for you, Ed. Are there opportunities to snorkel in St. Lucia?
Yes, absolutely. Every day, basically. So in St. Lucia, we've generally got an excursion or an activity in the morning, but in the afternoon, usually early to mid-afternoon onwards, we've always got the afternoon for you to have time out for yourself. So there is always a chance to snorkel. And at St. Lucia and Chastenay, we've got Scuba, which is the hotel's own kind of underwater centre. And you don't have to hire the kit at any fee. It's all included in being part of the hotel. So you can actually get your fins and your face mask, etc., actually from the hotel and go snorkeling every day if you wish.
Great, thank you. I'll put this to all panelists because we've had several questions on this evening. Some of you have mentioned it in your talks, but we're still getting questions on it. Can you explain whether the hotels and accommodation have got decent vegetarian options?
Yeah, I always start with that if you'll let me. As I think Ed was crystal and very, very specific about the diet of the Caribbean, all the food and very varied food. It is the case that it can please any diets, vegetarian, pescatarians, carnivores, omnivorous. It's a well varied and fresh food produced down there. In the case of Cuba, because Cuba is a special case because they cook whatever they can get on the day or that week. Despite of that, it's still pretty good, and the hotels always adjust, trying to make a huge effort to adjust to many tummies, many diets down there. But we have to say that in most of the hotels we go, where we visit, they're all inclusive. So there's plentiful of food, salads, different rices, different cheeses and things. So it's well varied. It's well varied.
Thank you, Byron. A question just in from Tony Sinnott. Which is the most laid back trip and best for a non-birding partner?
Well, St. Lucia was definitely designed for that very reason. So I mentioned in my talk earlier that actually it was designed for the very reason that if you've got a partner who's less into birds, then actually the St. Lucia tour is ideal because we go out in the morning. You don't have to, but we've got the dolphins, for example, we've got the forests, but you've always got early to mid-afternoon to actually, or onwards, to then actually relax around the hotel and the beach and what have you. And so when I've done this over the last 10 years or so, quite often partners who are less interested in going out bird watching have either decided to stay the whole day at the hotel or come out on some of those excursions that kind of finish around about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock or so.
With regards to Cuba, if I can join Ed's answer. Cuba is rich in history, and we try to combine that along or wildlife tour. And the big asset of our tour is we have a national guide, a well-experienced national guide that will tell us every day about all the history aspects of the city, as well as we're going to be involved in the whole visiting museums, visiting everything related to the revolution and whatever the Cuban history entails. And that can be a very good excuse for the non-birding to step apart and enjoy the trip. As well, we have fantastic beaches, as you saw, with great opportunities of relaxation, sunbathing, and also snorkeling around the cenotes, especially in the southern coast of Cuba.
Great, thanks both. A question from Sarah Blades. Ed, is there a chance to visit Trinidad after the main trip?
Yes, so with all Naturetrek trips, or certainly all the ones I've done, there's always the opportunity to either go there beforehand or have an extension afterwards. So absolutely with Trinidad, we can help you out with that. So if you would like to stay on for an extra few days, whether it's at Ace or Right or a different hotel, then we can help make that happen for you. Absolutely.
Thanks, Ed. And Andy, this one's for you from Martin Searle. Andy mentioned interest in combining tours, and we would be interested, e.g. Cuba and Puerto Rico. The dates overlap in the brochure, which suggests that may not be feasible, but this is something that we're possibly going to try and look at, isn't it, Andy?
Absolutely. I mentioned this in my talk earlier, and I was talking to Tom. We were on the phone, Tom, this afternoon about this. At Naturetrek, each operation manager deals with a different selection of tours, and sometimes we're working in parallel without actually cross-referencing with each other. So we've got this rather silly situation of my tour to Cuba and Tom's tour to Jamaica and Trinidad and my tour to Puerto Rico, and often the dates are overlapping, whereas actually there's a great opportunity there to work a bit more closely together and have one tour leading straight on after the other. Because to these Caribbean islands, £700 of your holiday spend goes on the international airfare. So in many ways, it makes sense to invest that airfare in a longer holiday if you've got the time and the budget. So we will actively be looking to combine some of these Caribbean islands. So if you choose, you can merge them and create a longer holiday. So watch this space on that one.
That's great. Thanks, Andy. Byron, a question for you from Stephen Griffin. How long is the Cuba trip, and do we run several each year?
Our trip is nearly a fortnight. It's 13 days, combining the day in and the day out, the inbound and outbound. During that time, we visit the best hotspots for wildlife in Cuba. Why November and March? We do 2 departures, November and March. Both of them are great in terms of see all the wildlife and the endemics. And having also the advantage of seeing the North American warblers and all the North American migratory birds that actually winter in Cuba during those months.
Great, thanks, Byron. Just a message from Loz Hayward here. She says, I'm more of a big cat person, but tonight's presentations have been excellent. Thanks very much, Loz. Do we have any more questions to come in? If you do have one, please fire them to us now. If any of the panelists have got anything else that they would like to say, please do feel free to add it. Otherwise, we can wrap the evening up. And I think I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of our presenters for joining us tonight. Andy, thank you to Maritza for joining as well. And thank you all so much for listening at home. This is the 11th presentation evening we've done so far. But if you have missed any of them, then don't worry. They are available to watch online via our website. If you hop onto our homepage, you'll be able to find a link to them there, which you can watch at your leisure. If you'd like to give us any feedback on this evening, then that's very welcome. Please do send it in to us. Likewise, if you think of any questions tomorrow or after the presentations, please do email them in to us as well. You can get us at info@naturetrek.co.uk. Finally, if you're a member of a natural history club or society and you'd like a Naturetrek speaker to deliver an online presentation to your members free of charge, then we're very happy to do that and arrange it for you. Please just contact us to let us know what you'd be interested in. We'll be back at the same time on Wednesday evening at 7:30, where we'll be taking you to North America, covering Western Canada, Arizona, Texas, Florida, and Yellowstone. So we hope you can join us. We'll stay online for the next 5 minutes or so, just in case you've got any last-minute questions. But until the next time, take care and good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, folks. Right.
Thank you very much. Bye.